Hello and welcome to my channel. Today what I have for everybody is I'm going to actually read a story that I have written. It's a short story and it's about the creation story that's written in the Sumerian tablets. This story that I am reading, I was going to read to you guys, is actually based off of the story called The Lost Book of Enki by Zachariah Sitchin. Zachariah Sitchin is a famous scholar, historian, and he's no longer alive, but he has done a lot of work that many people are fascinated with. Um, and he had translated some tablets, a lot of tablets, that he had spent 30 years learning Sumerian language, learning how to decipher cuneiform, and translate it into English. And so he gave us the translation from the tablets, which is the Sumerian creation story, which actually takes a few hours to read. But I'm going to go ahead and break that down to about 10 minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and start the creation story, Sumerian creation story now. Okay. So on a planet far away, a long time ago, a race of beings evolved and had help in their evolution. However, we do not know a lot about this. The race of beings are commonly known as the Anunnaki, meaning those who from heaven to earth came. Their planet we're going to call Nibiru, which is known from the Lost Book of Enki, written by Zachariah Sitchin. This is the primary source of where I get my information from for this paper. Okay, there came a time on the planet Nibiru where a fellow named Anu became king. Anu was the 8th king to rule on this planet. Now usually how it worked on their planet, to become king you were descended from a king and a queen. It was usually a prince that became king. Well, in Anu's situation, he was descended from a king and a slave. As we can imagine it, it wasn't easy for him to be king, coming from a slave mother. After much debate, though, and after many clashes with the council, Anu did become king of Nibiru. There came a time on Nibiru, while Anu was king, when there were very serious problems on their planet. One was that Anu's kid, his child Enlil, was getting himself in a lot of trouble, and also the planet's atmosphere was getting weak due to much pollution on their planet. The Anunnaki knew that gold was their solution to the atmosphere. They could break the gold down and spray it all over the atmosphere, and this would help from depleting the atmosphere. And Anu's son, Enki, thought there might be gold on a planet that they could get to. They called this planet Tiamat at that time. Anu sent the first Anunnaki to Tiamat to search for the gold and solution to their problem. After Alalu, which is one of the Anunnaki, went to Tiamat and succeeded in not only finding gold, he found fresh air, drinking water, and also vegetation. Anu was amazed at this and sent a team of Anunnaki to Tiamat, and some he sent to Mars, which was led by Enki's son Marduk. The Anunnaki at the time on Mars were called the Igigi. In order for them to function on Earth, they did something first. The Lost Book of Enki says that Nibiru's satellite, or one of its moons, hit Tiamat, causing tons of rocks that we called the asteroid belt to form, and after Tiamat's name became the Earth. After that, they placed the artificial moon in place and added the planets. They did all of this so they could control the Earth, the planet, and its gravity and its seasons. After this, they set up the first mining colonies on the Earth to mine the gold, and also Mars, so they could start their mining. The Anunnaki mined for thousands of years for the gold by themselves. This work was like slavery for them. The conditions were horrible compared to their home planet, especially Marduk and his Igigi crew back on the moon. Their conditions were even worse than the Anunnaki on the Earth. I should probably tell you at this time that the Anunnaki could live thousands of years. They were very much more advanced than we are. Go back to this now, and that has to do with the amount of time that it took for their Earth to rotate around the sun. Okay, so back to the story. Enlil and his spouse Ninlil have their son Nanar on Earth. He was the first Anunnaki born on the Earth. After many years of being forced to mine for the gold, the Anunnaki on the earth went on strike and told the leaders, in which at the time were Enlil and Enki, Anu's sons, "We're through with this slave work. Isn't there something else you can do or come up with?" So Enki, with his son Ningazita's help, came up with a plan. Ningazita saw that one of the creatures in the garden that was close to the species we know as the Homo erectus, and said to Enki, "What if we could take our DNA and add to this creature in the garden? We could come up with a helper for this gold project and take the pressure off the Anunnaki." So they got to work. After many tries and failures, they finally came up with a success, one that could work and take the toil off the hands of the Anunnaki. The first man they named Adamu, and therefore called the specific race at the time the Adamu race. The first woman was made by taking a rib bone from Adamu, and Enki created the first woman out of that rib and called her Tiamat after the earth. Adamu and Tiamat were placed in the garden at that time. The garden was called the Eden. This Eden was placed on top of a mountain. It was a most beautiful place. Adamu and Tiamat, they bore 7 sons and 7 daughters for the Anunnaki, to make the Adamu race, those which were to mine the gold and take the toil off the Anunnaki. They had succeeded in their mission. The Anunnaki did. After years had went by, Enki had noticed something strange was happening with this Adamu race. Instead of evolving, they were de-evolving. Instead of becoming smarter, they were becoming more primitive. So Enki had a plan. One day while he was taking a ride in his boat on the river, Enki had noticed 2 beautiful Adamu females bathing naked by the water. Enki took the 2 females and had sex with both of them. Both of the females got taken by Enki that day. 9 months later, these 2 Adamu females bore children. To one was born a female, to the other a male. The male they called Adapa. The female was named Tiki. These 2 children were the first to be civilized amongst their race. They were the first to be half Anunnaki and half Adamu. At first, Enki kept the deed a secret from his brother Enlil and his other family members, not knowing how their reaction would be. Around this time, Enlil's son Nanar and his spouse Ningal bore a son. They named him Utu. Enki and his son Ningazita took Adapa to Nibiru, that was the planet where they came from, to show him to Anu, their king. On the journey to Nibiru, Ningazita taught Adapa how the planets were gods themselves, how they were alive. He gave Adapa lessons of the sun, the earth, the air, and the moon. Ningazita also taught Adapa numbers and math and how to read and write. Adapa and Tiki had twins for their first time having children. 2 boys. They named one boy Cain and the other Abel. Marduk, which was Enki's son, taught Abel how to build stalls and take care of the animals. Ninurta, which was Enlil's son, taught Abel how to dig wells and take care of the crops in the garden. One day, Abel was boasting in front of his brother of how he was the most important to the Anunnaki, and he was why they were so successful. Their fight ended up in Abel's death. Cain beat Abel on his head with a rock until he died. Cain was sent to exile for the murder of his brother. He was sent to a land where horned beasts were hunted. Never to return was his fate. Adapa and Tiki had 30 sons and daughters to provide civilized earth beings to the earth, most of whom at the time were slaves for the Anunnaki and their gold project. By Seti, one of the sons of Adapa, the generations of man was counted. After time, one named Enchimi was born to Adapa. To this one, Enki took a special liking to. Enki taught Enchimi of the 12 celestial gods and how to read and write. He was the first man to be taught the functions of priesthood, so that man would have an example for order and righteousness. In time, Enchimi bore sons, Machual, Madashal, Lumak, Ragon, and Gaidad. In the days of Lumak, Marduk married a daughter of Enchim named Serponit. This was the first time an Anunnaki married an earthling in history. When the Igigi on Mars found out about Marduk marrying a human, they invited themselves to the wedding. In their hearts, the Igigi were scheming a plan. Since Marduk was allowed to take for himself an earthling, they wanted the same thing. 200 Igigi descended on Mount Ararat for the wedding. This is interesting to me because this is the exact number of watchers that landed on Mount Ararat in the Jubilees document written by Moses. After the wedding, the leader of the Igigi, a man named Shamgaz, took an oath with all 200 Igigi that they would do what they had come to do, and took an oath on it that they were all in this together. The Igigi forced themselves on the Adapite women, taking for themselves whomever they chose. Marduk had allowed for this to happen because he was marrying a human himself. He understood their point of view. They had wanted some, they haven't had any for a long time. And so he had let them just take any wife that they wanted. Marduk and Serponit had two sons. One they named Asar, and the other was named Satu. Around this time, when these events were playing out, Ninurta, brother of Marduk, took some of Cain's descendants who had survived the flood to another land where Ninurta had built two twin towers to establish some sort of beacon. In the Eden, Lumak at the time was granted position of Earth Master for the humans. Lumak married a lady named Batnash. One day while Batnash was bathing, Enki entered her room and had sex with her. Without telling anyone of what he did, Batnash bore a son with white hair and blue eyes. Respite, they named him. Sesudra is what they called him, though. Enki took a liking to his son Sesudra. He was the first human to be taught the priestly rites. Sesudra married a woman named Masara, and they bore three sons. The first was named Shem, the next was Ham, and then the next was Japheth. Enki at the time wanted to give humans knowledge on how to heal themselves when getting sick, and other sorts of knowledge. Enlil, however, forbid any of this. He did not like what was going on with the humans at this time, and all the evil that was happening on the earth. Around this time, the Earth's ice caps, both on the northern end of the world and the southern end, were melting, and there were black spots on the sun shooting out flares from the sunspots. The asteroid belts were unseen during this time in the planet's history. Nergal and Ereshkigal knew that the next time Nibiru came around the planet's orbit that there would be a huge flood on the Earth. All the mining operations were shut down, and sent all the remaining gold to Nibiru. Before the flood happened, Enki had a visit from an old white-haired man named Galzu. Galzu claimed he was from Nibiru, and he was sent from Anu. Galzu had a tablet with a message on it, and it was signed from Anu, which was Enki's father. It stated that a flood was going to come, and it said to save the human race. Later that night, Enki had a dream with Galzu in it. In the dream, Galzu gave Enki directions to save Sesudra and his family members. Galzu gave Enki a tablet with instructions on how to build a boat. Galzu also took Enki that he had 7 days. He told him that he had 7 days till the flood was going to come. When Enki awoke, there lied the tablet next to where he slept. So Enki got Sesudra and told him of the plan, and they got to work. All the Anunnaki were warned of the upcoming event, so they had the option to either go back to Nibiru or wait out the calamity. During the flood, the remaining Anunnaki hid on their spaceships. Sesudra and his wife and 3 sons, along with their wives, were saved. All the rest of the humans died, besides some of Cain's descendants, who saved themselves by high mountain grounds. When Sesudra landed on Mount Ararat at the end of the flood, he and his family took a lamb. They lathered it in oil and spices to sacrifice to the lords Enki and Enlil, to give thanks for their life. Enlil and Enki, after sensing the fire, descended in their whirlwinds to Sesudra. At the sight of Sesudra, Enlil was outraged. All the humans were supposed to die, he told Enki. Enki told Enlil of his dream about his visit with Galzu. After this, Enlil said to Enki and the humans, "On my oath, the annihilation of mankind shall never again be done." He promised. So Enlil sent a sign of peace to all man on the earth from here on. Sesudra was taught farming, and with his offspring, the generations of man began to replenish the earth. By the floods happening, an avalanche hit deep into the mountainsides, exposing tons of visible gold to the naked eye. A miracle from the Creator, all of this was, said Enki. Ningazita built a new spaceport, and he built what was known as the Giza Pyramids and Sphinx, which faced the place of the celestial chariots. It is said in many ancient texts that if you entered the pyramids at Giza at a certain time of the year on a certain equinox and sat in a certain chamber in the pyramid, that you would become an initiate of the gods. However, in the Enki story by Sitchin, it refers to the pyramids as a beacon, and it does point to the fact that it had more than one purpose, as we see that it points towards the place of the celestial chariots, and also Giza may have been the or a place near where a port was established to transport gold from the earth to Nibiru after the flood. Sons of Marduk at this time were next to be granted power on the earth. Asar and Satu were their name. Asar married one of the Igigi named Asta. While at the wedding ceremony, Shamgaz, leader of the Igigi, hands Asar a mixed drink, which caused him to fall and become unconscious. The host of the banquet takes Asar to a coffin and throws it into the sea. Before he dies, somehow Asta, wife of Asar, collects semen from his penis and impregnates herself. She did this so that her son may become king and avenger of Asar. Asta had a baby named Haran. Avenger of Asar he was to become. This was the plan of Asta. Gibel, one of the Agigi, taught Haran how to make weapons, and gifts of the gods Gibel gave to him. One of the gifts was a flying shoes, and another was a harp which shot arrows. This sounds pretty familiar. Haran fashioned an army to challenge Satu to Tilman, the land of the missiles they went. Satu awaited Haran in this whirlwind. Let this be man on one, said Satu to Haran after seeing his army. In their battle, Haran was wounded. In the battle at first, his eye was gouged out, and he lied on the ground when Ningazita came to his rescue and gave him a potion to drink, which saved Haran. Haran ended up beating Satu, smoking him down with his harp. He let Satu live, but no longer as a divine being. Satu had to finish his days as a mortal. Haran bore a son. Nabu was his name, which meant prophecy bearer. Enlil's daughter Inanna and Dumuzi got married. Inanna wanted Dumuzi to be lord so she could be queen. This was her plan. On the night of the wedding, Dumuzi was betrayed. Fearing for his life, he ran. He slipped on some rocks and died. Ningal retrieved his lifeless body of Dumuzi and told Enki what happened. Enki knew that Inanna would devise a plan to cause havoc, so Enki fashioned 2 emissaries out of clay. He made them to go and retrieve Inanna. When these emissaries of Enki found Inanna, she lied poison from a drink that had caused her. Oh wait, she laid poison from a drink she had caused herself to drink. They gave her a potion and revived her. When she awakened, Inanna went to Enki and demanded the death of Marduk. She thought somehow Marduk was the one responsible for her husband's death. Enki said, there has been enough bloodshed amongst our people, and assured her that Marduk wouldn't do this. So Inanna, still in outrage about her husband, went to her father and brother Enlil and Utu. Enlil said, Marduk, the evil servant, must be rid of. So Inanna and her clan went to Marduk and demanded war. Marduk hid in what was known as the Ikor, a machine which they had called the All-Seeing Eye. Inanna learned where he was hiding, and Ishkar trapped Marduk at the end of the area where he was in the Ikor. All of this was the doing of Ishkar, Utu, Nanar, and Inanna. So Enki called Ninhursag, the peacemaker, and demanded the freedom of Marduk. Enlil demanded if Marduk be let loose, then he would be in charge to all bonds to heaven and earth, and that the Igigi would abandon their stations at the rocket place. So it was, as Enki decreed. Ningazita was summoned for the rescuing of Marduk. After much hard work and effort, he managed to rescue Marduk from the Ikor. Marduk, his wife Serponit, and his son Nabu were banished to a life of no return, to a place where horned beasts were hunted. After all of this, Anu had decided to come back to the earth one more time to establish lordship and clear up any situations that had occurred. When Anu and his wife Antu arrived on the earth, and Utu and grandchildren welcomed them and noticed how the Anunnaki on earth that were younger than their grandparents looked older. This was because of the difference between the earth and the planet's sun cycles. When Enki saw his father, he soon after told him of his visit from Galzu and Sasudra. After hearing Enki speak, Anu told his son that he never met anyone named Galzu, and he did not send him. Enki, after hearing these words of his father, came to the conclusion that Galzu must have been sent from the creator of all. The saving of the humans must have been the will of the creator of all. After sharing this with Anu, Anu told Enki, "Let the earth belong to the earthlings. If the creator of all's will is for us to advance the humans, then let it be." Anu said, "Teach them," he declared, "wisdom and knowledge, up to a certain measure, and then leave." There came a point when the Anunnaki were given ranks. To each was given a certain authority. Ninurta, he was given Enlil's powers. To Ishkar, a landing place in the Cedar Mountains he was given. To Ninnar, he was given the place of chariots, where Utu was the commander. To Ningazida, he was given lordship over his region. During this time, the descendants of Sasudra intermixed with the Anunnaki, of which the offspring became the kings of the earth. So civilized regions the Anunnaki decided to make. How to build bricks with mud and how to build sacred precincts they taught the humans. In a land called Kishi, which was known in Egypt, Ninurta appointed the first man king. Mighty Man, they called him. In Kishi, black-headed people were taught writing, how to make beer, and also how to make wheeled wagons. Also in Kishi, hymns and praises were sang to Ninurta and his blackbird. Before Anu departed from earth, he went with Enki to the land of Marduk to see his grandson. When they had found Marduk, they were informed of the death of Serponit, which was Marduk's wife. Enki, with a love for his son and forgiveness in his heart, let his son return from his exile. When Marduk returned, he demanded he be given a city, as was the others in his family. However, he was denied by Enlil. Angrily, Marduk gathered people and taught them to make mud bricks and helped them build a tower which was to be a stairway to heaven, the first spaceport operated by the humans. Enlil was outraged at this and demanded he be stopped. At this time, all men on earth spoke one language. Enlil has his army shoot down this tower from their skyships. Not only this, but he scattered all the people and separated their languages. After separating the people to far-off lands, Ningazida in his land was called the Feathered Serpent, which we know today to be the term used for Quetzalcoatl in the Mayan culture. The Anunnaki in a nearby land were now called the Himta, which means guardian watchers in English. Marduk in Kishi was known as Ra. Enki was called Ptah. Ningazida was called Tahuti. In an attempt to erase Ningazida's face on the Sphinx, Marduk inscribed his own face on the former face. Marduk had appointed a king in Kishi named Menez. This one was to bring the north and south together and unite them as one. To Marduk the top rank was given. To leader of the Anunnaki he was to be on the earth. He would establish his power and rank through generations to come, and through the royal bloodlines his rule would play out. In the third region, which at the time was not yet civilized, this area was given to Inanna to rule. To enrich mankind with life and knowledge was the Anunnaki's destiny. All of this was told to the scribe named Abdubsar, which he then inscribed on clay tablets for a future generation of man to find when the time was right. Well, I believe now is that time. Look, 2012 was supposed to be the end of the world. It is a fact that did not happen. But maybe, as the Mayans and many other cultures have said, is that it wouldn't be the end of the world, but a new time in human consciousness, a time of awakening to knowledge that has been hidden for so long. This is a short story of what is called the Lost Book of Enki by Zecharia Sitchin. For more details, I would encourage you to read the entire book. There are much debate amongst scholars and many topics involving Sitchin's findings that many would not agree with. I do agree with much of the findings against Sitchin, such as what he chooses to call the Nephilim and the Anunnaki. On my findings, I do think that Sitchin was wrong on some occasions. However, I give him respect for much effort in his research and do give him credit where it is due. I wrote this a long time ago, and yeah, Zecharia Sitchin, he wasn't perfect. He spent 30 years trying to learn Sumerian and cuneiform to try to translate it. Of course, his translations aren't going to be 100% perfect, but he did the best that he can do, and he did a very good job. And we have learned as a people so much from Zecharia Sitchin. So there's a big, big thank you that we all, as a human race, owe to him. So, with that said, I just wanted to show my short story today on the Sumerian creation story. It is much longer in Zecharia Sitchin's version. It actually took me 2 days to read that, and a non-stop read when I was reading it. And it was just like this. Somebody read it to me online. But if you have the time and you want to go check it out, it's a lot more detailed, and I'm sure you'll learn a lot. So check it out. It's called The Lost Book of Enki by Zecharia Sitchin. If you like what you heard, you can donate to me. I have a donate button which says PayPal/Ricky Cadenhead. All you got to do is either press on that or copy and paste it in your toolbar, and you can donate whatever you would like. Okay. Thank you very much for coming to my channel. Have a great day.